That's quite. Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming, even though we have great weather outside today. So we're very honored to have Brian here from OpenBazaar. He's the founder of OpenBazaar and the CEO of ObiWan, and he will talk how he is challenging Amazon and why we need a peer-to-peer marketplace. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. So I just want to say, like, this title is not like my favorite title because I think we don't necessarily like consider ourselves trying to go against Amazon directly. I think it's more about coming up with like a decentralized commerce protocol that can support a bunch of different things. I mean, it could be anything from an Uber to an Airbnb to an eBay to what Amazon does, et cetera, right? So, so we'll just ignore that for now. But my name is Brian Hoffman. Like you said, I am the founder of OpenBazaar, and I'm also the CEO and one of the 3 co-founders of ObiWan. So OpenBazaar is not actually the original incarnation of this idea. So has anybody ever heard of dark market? Okay, a few people, right? So dark market was actually the brainchild of Amir Taki, who's of the Bitcoin fame, and they did it at a Toronto hackathon in early 2014. The idea was to create a Silk Road that was unstoppable, completely decentralized. And so in like 2 days, they whipped up a proof of concept called Dark Market, which kind of did everything it was supposed to do. But they open sourced it, and then they basically walked away from it, the team, because at the time they were working on Dark Wallet, which was much more popular. And so when I asked if I could help them with it, they basically like just gave it to me. So which I thought the idea was like absolutely brilliant. And I actually wanted to extend it beyond just drugs, which clearly like it could be used for more than that. So so we rebranded it OpenBazaar, and then I started soliciting help from people all over the internet. And you've contributed to the project. Has anybody else? No, probably not. But that's it's pretty cool to meet someone who's also helped. We've had several thousand people contribute code to the repository, and we've been going for about 3 years now. My background is in computer science. I have a degree in computer science, programmer, and I spent about 13 years working for different organizations working on encryption technologies, PKI. I worked with NSA, FBI, CIA, Department of Defense, some of these companies like FedEx, but basically helping them solve a lot of their identity problems, doing smart card stuff, retina scanners, things like that. But through that work, I became familiar with Bitcoin, and it was incredible to see like these massive government public key infrastructures being set up, and it's all completely centralized, and they're very worried about protecting it and having it compromised, and then seeing the complete opposite end of the spectrum where it's completely decentralized and no one controls that, and yet there's still complete organization around all that. And so I started to push, I was working at Booz Allen, which is where Edward Snowden worked. I was trying to start a Bitcoin practice there, but ended up just working on a bunch of projects with like FBI, and it was basically, you know, the process was child pornographer gets caught, has Bitcoin, let's trace it through the blockchain. It was like pretty much that's like the only work that they were interested in doing. And so we sought funding for ObiWan so we could do OpenBazaar full time, and I quit immediately and went to work on this. So now I get to dress like this and work in my basement. This is our team. Earlier today I kind of put this slide in here to just kind of point out what you guys are probably already very well aware of, is that the teams that are building all these decentralized technologies are located everywhere. Like our complete team is all over the globe. We have no offices, we have no central location, everywhere from Australia to Asia to Greece to multiple places in America. And somehow stuff still gets done. So ObiWan, a lot of times there's a question around what is ObiWan versus OpenBazaar. So ObiWan, even though it sounds like Obi-Wan from Star Wars, which it kind of was an homage to, ObiWan actually stands for OpenBazaar First Company. So it's supposed to be the first company that was building products and services for OpenBazaar users. And so we build protocols, apps, and services. We primarily hire most of the core devs for the OpenBazaar project. We also have a product called ObiWan Search, which is going to be coming out in August, which is basically decentralized search is very hard. You know, trying to find products and services that people are selling on every single device, from a Raspberry Pi to a data center across the globe, and do it in real time is very challenging. It's something we struggled with for a long time, and so part of the app is somewhat centralized, right? Like, so ObiWan Search basically does like what Google does for the internet. It crawls it and indexes it, and it does things like that. But the great thing about what we've done with that is that we've made it so that anybody can build a search engine. So you're not really like stuck with ours. If you don't agree, like Amazon, when you search for an item, they'll oftentimes place their stuff above other people's listings, or they have like convoluted algorithms. This way, it creates a much more democratized situation where if a search engine is abusing their privileges, you can switch off of it. So it's kind of a hybrid of centralized and decentralized in that way. And we also have ObiWan Deploy, which is like you can host a node in the cloud for free. So for people that aren't like familiar with all the running a node. So we consider ourselves the first truly decentralized marketplace. There are others out there. There's like Shadow Market, Safe Market, Bit Markets, but most of these haven't really done much if they've got a workable product at all. And a lot of them are built jamming the data into the blockchain, whereas ours was architected in a way where most of the data is not in the blockchain. We use the blockchain primarily for currency usage. So there's no data centers, no middleman. It's Bitcoin only right now, completely decentralized in terms of its network. Well, it's debatable. Everybody likes to argue about what decentralized means, but and then we have peer-to-peer. So when a merchant sells something to a buyer, they are not going through data center, ObiWan servers or anything like that. An encrypted channel is set up between the two parties, and they do their business together, and that's the only people that have that information is between those two peers. So here's just a short comparison about centralized marketplaces and decentralized marketplaces like OpenBazaar. Some of this is pretty obvious. Centralized marketplaces, a lot of the reason why they're so valuable is because of the data that they're capturing about everything going on in the marketplace. Your identity data, what you're selling, what you're interested in searching for, all of that stuff. And for that awesome benefit to you, they charge you over 10% a lot of times to actually sell something. And that's not even including the credit card fees on top of that. And another big issue is they've pretty much created a monopoly around dispute resolution. If you have a problem with something that's going on in the marketplace, you basically appeal to Amazon or whatever, or eBay, and they decide, and that's it. That's the end of the story. OpenBazaar has a little bit different model for that. So basically your node hosts all of your identity data and your shopping data and your sales data. It's all yours, it's all on your computer, on your node. Which creates a little bit more responsibility for you, but you guys are Bitcoiners, so you should be used to that. There's absolutely no take rate baked into the protocol. There was a question earlier from someone about why don't you just take a small fee from it and make money off of that? Well, it's open source code. Ideally, people would just fork it, remove the fee, and run it that way. So that was never really like a viable option for us. We always felt that like the protocol needed to remain pure and open and completely free. And then the dispute resolution model. So instead of having a central organization that does dispute resolution and handles customer support and stuff, anybody on the network can be a dispute resolution person. We call them moderators. And you can determine your own fee, your own specialty, your own terms of agreement. So when you buy something from somebody on OpenBazaar, you get to choose who your moderator is based on reputation, rating, experience, maybe specialty, and include them in the transaction. And what happens is it's basically a 2 of 3 multi-sig, which means basically 3 parties, the buyer, the seller, and the moderator control the funds for the transaction. And so, when you want to buy something from a merchant, you put money into the 2 of 3 multi-sig. When the product is delivered to you, you, as the buyer, if you're happy, you would release the funds to the merchant, and the moderator would never be part of that. But if there was some kind of dispute, you file that with the moderator, and they would help you come in and fix that. And so, if the merchant did something bad, the moderator could get with the buyer, sign a transaction to refund it, or vice versa for the merchant. And what's cool about that is we're starting to see almost like a market of moderation show up. So people are incentivized to actually be good at providing support rather than be just people that get hired by the company to try and do the best they can. OpenBazaar is essentially, it's permissionless commerce. You'll notice when you download the app and you install it, there's no registration, there's no sign up, there's no need for that because you're not validating your identity with anybody. There's no terms or conditions. You can literally sell anything you want, anything. You can sell your sister, you can sell your house, you can sell your car. It's up to the people on the network. Now, this is obviously a double-edged sword. Bad comes with the good, but if you want a truly open and free network, then you have to remain agnostic. We do provide tools within the app to filter and do things like that to prevent what you view on the network, but it's all opt-in, and nothing stops you from doing anything else. There's no listing rules. Amazon and eBay all have a lot of different rules around what you can post, what your photos look like, all that stuff. Doesn't exist, and it's completely global. So the first week that we put OpenBazaar 1.0 out, it was installed in over 147 countries, which I don't think any other commerce software has been able to do that yet. So OpenBazaar was built with a bunch of open protocols. Some of them are here, IPFS, big one, Bitcoin obviously, Tor. So our next version is going to support Tor. You can run your node completely behind Tor. Everything is completely hidden. And so, that will be a really good boon for privacy advocates. I know, particularly here in Europe, there's a lot of concern over privacy compared to the rest of the world. I've been to China and they didn't like that. And in the US, people are pretty indifferent in general. But, in Germany, everybody was waiting to install it when it came up with Tor. So, so we're really happy to be able to present that in the next version. So why do people go to OpenBazaar? Right now it's kind of a weird place to be. It doesn't really feel a lot like Amazon or eBay, even though that's kind of what we compare it to. So here are some of the things that we've seen on the network. So this one on the far left, this is actually a vendor who provides Uber-like services in Shanghai. So when we went to DevCon last year, we booked our driver through that, and he showed up. We paid him in Bitcoin. We booked it all through there. He got rated, and he started to get reputation. And he was doing driver pickups and limo rides through OpenBazaar, which was super easy for him. He got it set up in 5 minutes, and he was paying no fees to anybody. And then there's a couple other different types of stores. It's also a platform. It's open source software, so obviously people can build on top of it and contribute how they'd like to. Some of the things that people are building are search engines, hosting services, moderation services. So this guy, BazaarGuard, actually said, hey, I'm going to take that moderation concept and actually professionalize it. And he had a website, and you could see the services he provided, and was really serious about it. So that's kind of OpenBazaar in a nutshell. It's kind of quick, and I probably left out a lot of the details, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what's coming next. So this is the new version that's going to be coming out in August. This is the desktop app, and it's all been re-architected and now runs on IPFS. If you're not familiar with that, it's I guess how would you explain it? It's like a file storage network, but it's decentralized, and basically it's what is enabling us to do Tor and a bunch of other things. It's also going to allow us to be able to do mobile, a web-based version, which we don't currently have, which is pretty incredible technology. So yeah, I think if you've used the first version of OpenBazaar, when you use the second one, you're going to be like, I can't believe the other one even functioned. And then also this month, in a couple weeks, we're going to be releasing an iOS app, which is actually going to be branded ObiWan. And basically, you don't have to do hardly anything to get it going. Like when you sign up, you get a node installed by ObiWan. It's all managed by that. It's automatically updated. You get the storefront, no sales fees or anything. End-to-end encrypted chat in the app. You can actually send P2P payments through it with Bitcoin. It has a native SPV wallet built into it, so you could use it as like a Bitcoin wallet if you want, just straight up. And it's completely 2.0 compliant, so when the desktop app comes out, you'll be able to like connect to your store from either of them. Or you can choose to just use the app as like a controller for your node. So ideally you could set up a OpenBazaar node in a data center somewhere else in the world, put it behind Tor, connect to this, through your mobile app, and all is good. So that's pretty much all I have. So I'd love to answer any questions you guys have. Sure.
Do you have any problems with people selling goods like frogs that prosecution comes down to ObiWan?
So we haven't really gotten there yet because on the first network, we don't really support Tor or anything. So for the most part, people know not to do bad stuff on it or you're going to get caught. So we haven't really seen that. Also, ObiWan didn't really do anything before 2.0. So all we were doing is producing software. Our lawyers have told us that most of that is just protected under freedom of speech. So, we're not profiting from it. We're not like hurting people. It's just building open source software. In the next version, yes, ObiWan will have to be responsible for a lot more stuff. And ideally, like our search stuff will probably have to comply with US law. But like I said before, it's optional. So you could use other search engines, like maybe a drug engine shows up and people use that. I don't know. We'll see.
The actual buy and sell transactions be conducted through what is this, smart contract type of
So we designed it to not use smart contracts per se. We call them dumb contracts, but they're actually Ricardian contracts. And basically it's like a JSON structure, or like, it's just a code that basically it's a schema for like how the contract is laid out. And so the nodes have the software in order to process that contract. So it's not really like a fully executing smart contract like you'd see on Ethereum or anything. The reason we did that is because we wanted the contract system to be able to work on any blockchain at some point, and not really be like limited to the Ethereum virtual machine or whatever. So.
I guess first of all, super cool stuff. Obviously going to change the world. Super revolutionary one. Thank you for sharing that. I guess my question is, you talked about the different third-party services and discovery, search, for example. Given the things that we can do with centralized marketplaces where you're using collaborative filtering to kind of build recommender engines or do personalized campaigns and that kind of stuff, how does that work in an era where my transaction data is decentralized? How do I build those models if the data is spread out, at all these different nodes?
Yeah, I think that opens up a bigger question just from decentralization in general, which is, if you take the data away from these bigger companies and stuff, how do you do really amazing things like that, right? Like Amazon can look at their massive amount of data and make a lot of generalizations about what you're going to buy, predict what you're going to try to sell, or like, if you go to a certain location of the world, what you might be interested in. Now you take away all that great data, what do? That's a great question. We struggle with that every day. In fact, we talk to our investors, they're like, how many transactions did you get this month? We're like, we have no clue. They're like, how much are you selling? We have no clue. How many users do you have? Well, we know about this many nodes. That's about it. And that's not an acceptable answer to them, but realistically, like that's kind of the world you're living in when you move all that data out and it's like sitting on all these nodes. Now, I think there's probably a middle ground somewhere where we start to be nice to users and say, can we please have some of your data? Can you opt into giving us some of your data? Like share what you can, like anonymize that data, stuff like that. So we'll probably start to experiment a little bit there and see what we can do, because it is really helpful. Like you can't build better products if you don't have more information. So I don't have the great answer for that yet, but it's something that we're painfully obvious of.
Because like today, it's all implicit, right? I guess for the average user, it's implicit that my data is being used for things behind the scenes. But I guess what you're saying is it's with what's happening now, it's being made explicit. So I explicitly give permission, and this is what I get for it. So it's a lot more honest in exchange, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. So, I mean, you either have to do that or you have to figure out what you can do with the data you can extrapolate from the network
Awesome.
as it is. So,
Is there any reason not to use OB for financial products like stocks and options?
no, there's no reason. In fact, when we first started the project, we did a lot of kind of like brainstorming. You could kind of call them white papers, but like basically talking about different use cases. And those are some of them, like futures markets and different kind of like assets and stuff like that. Now, obviously, smart contracts are kind of the space where everybody's playing with that right now. But yeah, I mean, it certainly could be modeled that way, and it was designed to support that at some point. So.
Would you need to have a node up and running 24 hours a day as a vendor, or with IPFS you can have? It is a setup for the node for the vendor. That's my question. The second question is, what would be the setup integrating Tor as a vendor? If you can do it on your personal machine or.
Okay, so there's two questions, right? Like the first one is the node's up and running 24/7. Yeah, so the first version, you have to run the node all the time. So when I said that like we're not putting data into the blockchain for the stores, that means that you host it and you have to actually make it available at all times. In the next version in IPFS, the network is cached somewhat. So basically your data will stay there for 30 days. If you don't come back and like connect to the network, you'll have to kind of reseed it. But this is much better than the first model where you have to be online all the time, because now, as long as you come back within 30 days, people can still purchase items from you. They can still message you, do everything that they normally do with your profile. As soon as you come back online, you sync up and you can do it just like anything else. And the second question was the what? Oh, the Tor setup. Yeah, I mean, so the way that Tor works is like you can run it without Tor or you can run it with Tor. If you run your service with Tor, your listings are only available to other Tor users. They won't be able to see your listings because you're running a hidden service. It's just like you can't go to a Tor website with your regular browser. So they're separate. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there's actually a hybrid mode too, which is like you can make it available. Your listings can be available to both sides, but like you're not really hidden, so you're not protected. Yeah.
Also two questions. One, kind of like what do you see as potential competitors or your USP versus like status or other kind of platforms? And then secondly, I maybe missed that in the beginning. Are you going to support multiple digital currencies, or how's that?
Our competitors, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of really great ones. I mentioned them in the beginning a little bit. It's like Safe Market and Shadow Market, Bit Markets. These guys are like kind of doing similar things, but they use their own coin or like they're using their own blockchain, or there's like some limitations around it. And we haven't really seen those like get any significant adoption to be that concerned about. But it's hard to say if they're like really a competitor. Our mobile app is starting to look a little bit more like a status or like a token or one of those, because I think we're all trying to like emulate the WeChat kind of thing. But I still wouldn't really consider them competitors. I mean, those apps would have to build in marketplaces and stuff, which they don't have. And then the second question was, my memory's horrible. So what was the second question? Oh, the currencies, multiple currencies. Yeah, I mean,
yours just switched to Litecoin. I don't know if that's like a trend or how you see that.
I mean, I'll be real honest with you. $3 fees is like really hard for a marketplace like this. It's really brutal. We're super committed to Bitcoin and kind of doing that. I spend most of my time right now in the last few weeks like trying to talk to. I mean, I'm here to meet you mostly, to talk to core devs and other people, to really understand like why aren't we scaling,
Miners.
It's the miners, right? Yeah, I'll tell Jihan that. No. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to start to consider whether or not you're going to at least support other currencies as an option. For us, that means having to package another wallet with the software for each one you want to do, and that's more challenging. But we do have it currently running with Zcash and Litecoin, so we're thinking about running it with those, and also toying around with Ether. So ultimately, we'd like to be able to support all those, but just trying to figure out how to do it well.
You guys considering to create your own coin and going for an ICO?
Our investors would like us to. I think as CEO of our company, I have to look at it pragmatically and like think about it. But I really truly haven't found like a great utility for having a token. Already we use IPFS, we use Blockstack, we use Bitcoin. If we open up to other currencies, you're talking about users having to understand all those different currencies for different purposes. Now you want to add another OB coin on top of it. It's just hard to think of in our heads like how we justify that. Then again, you look at it and you're like, $150 million would be really great. So, but for the moment, no, we're not thinking about doing a token seriously. So.
Is there some sort of verification system?
Yeah, a really, really primitive one. Basically, like if you purchase something from somebody, when you like release the funds, you can review them, give them a reputation, and that basically is like a signed. It's like it goes onto the contract and it gets signed and they can store it. But it's a lot like an SPV wallet mode where like if you ask it for certain transactions, like the node could omit things. So like if you ask a node for its reputation, it can give you all these ratings, but it could like leave some out, and then you might not have the whole picture. So it's not very ideal. It's just basically kind of basic function. What's that?
Could it change its own reviews?
No, it can't change anything. Like the reviews that it shows you are going to always be valid. You can validate the signatures, but like they could just leave out some of them. But we gave a grant to a group in Greece that are working on a project called Trust is Risk, and it's kind of an interesting model. It's pretty complex, but like essentially you can put coins against people to like. So let's say we have an address that's shared between a merchant and a buyer, and you can put coins into that address, and it's either one can take the coins at any time. So if that person takes the coins, then they would lose reputation on the trust graph, and so you can shift coins around and have like like a web of trust going on. It's really fascinating. If you're interested, you can find it on the web. But we're looking at incorporating some kind of more established web of trust reputation system in the future.
More to the basics. I think you mentioned that when transactions about to take place, you have to choose like potential arbitrator.
Mm-hmm.
You 2 out of 3 notices.
Yeah.
At what point does that happen, and who chooses it, and how do you choose it?
That's a good question. First of all, it's optional, so you don't have to use a moderator. You can certainly just pay the person and hope they send what they're going to send, which is not ideal. But the way that it works right now, just for ease of use, is that the merchants will find ones that they trust, that they've used multiple times, and give you suggestions. If you can look at their reputation, validate their ratings, and do things like that. But if you don't trust it, you can suggest another one. So there's kind of like a little bit of a negotiation deal. But yeah, it's the easiest way is to just basically go along with the merchant's one and just make sure that the reputation is valid on the network. So.
Could I also, for example, just agree with the merchant to sell him half now, and if the goods are okay, sell the other half? So to share the risk somehow without an arbitrator?
I mean, we don't have that model. I mean, that would be a different...
That would be like completely manual.
That would be a different flow, and we just don't do that. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways that people are looking at like solving this problem. BitMarkets uses like a double deposit escrow where you both put money in and you both lose it if you don't resolve it, and things like that. So people are experimenting, but we've done this for over a year, and it's worked pretty well. Generally, the moderators, they want to be as trustworthy as possible, so they will put links to their other reputation on other websites, like, you know, where they, like Bitrated is another place where people have their accounts and identity kind of linked in. So a lot of people are vetting them off of OpenBazaar, like in other places.
What's the interest for the moderators? I mean, they don't seem to make money on this, or do they?
Yeah, they get a fee. You can determine your fee. So in the first version, you just could say, like, I charge 1% of the transaction. And the next one, you can actually say, like, I'll charge 50 cents for the first $100 and then 2% or whatever, or it could be 0%. There's a lot of moderators that are willing to, like, they're just starting out, they're 0%. People use them because they're free. So, but, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. So, but yeah, it's like a whole separate marketplace almost of its own.
Unless somebody else has a question, because I already asked one.
I think you're it.
Awesome. So if I'm a new merchant, what's the is there any advice you give? Like, I have my inventory, I put it on OpenBazaar, and then, like, how do I do marketing? Can I go to a third-party service and do keyword research? I guess I can't advertise it per se.
So right now, what most people are doing is, so the primary search engine that's on the web for OpenBazaar, since it's only a desktop app, is Duo Search. And they have, like, featured vendors, they have featured moderators, you know, you can link out to that and social media and do things like that. In the next version, we have an IPFS gateway, so it's available through the web. So we're going to be working on ways for people to promote and market their services through the web as well as mobile and everything. So it'll be much, much better.
I've been listening with great interest the whole time. I think this is a great product, and it's evolving, and it's going to get mature. It's going to get a lot of users. And as this gets bigger, much like eBay and Amazon and so on, what would prevent them from acquiring OpenBazaar? I mean, and then what would happen to the users who invested in this alternate to eBay for these very reasons that were outlined initially?
Well, so it's a great question, one that we're thinking about the best way to kind of, like, resolve it. Like, right now, the answer would be, you know, we've licensed the open source software of OpenBazaar, where if anybody acquired ObiWan, they don't get OpenBazaar. They would get our company and any assets we built, not the software. So, you know, that would be one thing that would kind of deter them probably from purchasing us. Second thing is, you know, ideally we'd like to set up, like, some kind of nonprofit foundation in the US that would kind of manage the protocol and manage the ownership of that. We have other developers of the protocol that aren't at ObiWan, and so obviously us selling OpenBazaar would be, like, the worst thing for them, and they would, like, very much disagree. But we think that maybe having some kind of nonprofit organization that has, like, the protocol's interests at, you know, best interests at heart would be a good way to go. But we still haven't really formalized that or decided what we're going to do there. So.
What's the financial dynamics of your business? Like, how do you make money?
So right now, we make no money. You know, we're primarily focused on building OpenBazaar and, like, getting more people to use it. And our investors are primarily, like, marketplace investors. So, you know, they invested in Twitter and Etsy and others. So they understand that, like, building a marketplace takes time, like trying to get liquidity in the market. That being said, they're kind of shifting their view of, like, how these projects profit, right? Because, like I said, eBay's not going to buy us, right? We're just centralized protocol. So if the investors can't exit through an acquisition, where else can they make money? Right now, they're thinking it's probably going to be tokens. But if you don't do a token, then what does that leave you with? My thought is that there's this, like, really novel idea that you can actually build a real business and, like, sell services and make profit off of it, which is kind of unique, I guess, in the crypto space. But you know, like, you know, we're offering hosting services and search services, and you know, one of the big things about doing e-commerce is being able to promote your services, which is very hard right now. And so, you know, we want to build other tools and stuff to help people sell successfully on OpenBazaar. And there are other companies that are doing similar things around insurance contracts, buyer protection insurance, and other things. So I still think that there's like really great opportunities for things that can't really be solved fully by decentralization right now. But you know, I don't know, maybe token is in the future and that's the way you monetize it. I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm always wrong. I'm wrong all the time, so you never know.
What is holding people back from using it? Because there are not so many listings still.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to install right now. It's desktop only. It's still not a great app yet. I mean, we're working very hard on the next version because of that fact. We've had a year to kind of hear what people are saying, and most of it is the app crashes. You know, it's kind of hard to use, and I have this issue or that issue. The community, like, I can't run it behind my firewall. It's mostly technical issues. So we've resolved a lot of those. Now we have a whole nother slew of problems with the fees. So, but we're still seeing people use the product. Like, we get probably 1,500 to 2,000 new users each month coming on the network, which is, it's not huge, but for something that is still difficult to run, that's a good amount of people that are dedicated to getting it going. You know, if I had to answer to like why it's not like got 1 million users yet, then I probably wouldn't be here. I'd probably be like trying to figure out how to get more servers to, you know, run stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, that's the eternal question. I think there's not a lot of stuff in the marketplace, which creates the chicken and egg problem too. Like, you're like, who uses it? There's nothing in the market. And you're like, but you know, how do you get people to put stuff in the market if there's no users in the market? So yeah, it's something we're always working on.
Have you considered, it's a technical question, but have you considered moving away from the desktop app to more browser-based solutions where it's like client side stuff?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally it was hard for us to do it. Like it was impossible to do it in the first one because you have to have that 24/7 node running, and to do that in the browser is somewhat difficult. And we kind of envisioned people running it in like a VPS or something and kind of connecting to it. In the new version, we're pretty close to like starting to work on one, but we need IPFS to support web browsing. So they use WebRTC and like web technologies to do the nodes. And once they're finished with that, then we can start to build a web-only version, which will definitely lower the barrier to entry as well. Because now you can say, go to this website and sign up rather than go install an app and do all that. I mean, when you think about it, like if you're a buyer and you just want to buy something very quickly, like who wants to download an app to like just buy something? You might if you're a Bitcoin enthusiast. Obviously, there's a bunch of them doing that. But once it's like, I just go to the web and I can get a QR code, pay, and do it all through the web, no install, that will be like probably a really big accelerator for growth, I would assume. So.
On OpenBazaar, how can we make sure the seller will be honest?
Okay, the seller? Well, I mean, so that's basically the 2 of 3 transaction is generally the process you would do to secure that. So your funds go into like an escrow type account, and if they don't deliver the goods, you can get a refund, basically. So, you know, that's kind of the protection. Now, I mean, there are other problems that you can't really like handle through OpenBazaar. Like if they send you fraudulent sneakers and you already released the funds, like no one can force them to give you their money back. So there's those kinds of issues. But, you know, I mean, I don't know of any other really good way to solve that problem yet. I don't think any of the other marketplaces do a very good job of that other than just like returning your money. And with Bitcoin, you know, it's hard to do that, especially with anonymous people. If you're dealing with somebody anonymous on the network, where are you going to go to like get your money back? So, yeah, it's right now it's like, you know, new grounds. So we don't really know all the answers.
So the moderators can also be reviewed, I assume.
Yeah.
If the moderator becomes active, then obviously one of the two parties will be happy and the other will be unhappy.
Yeah.
So how do other people know which moderator, the single moderator, that always happy? both
Yeah,
sides of the
it's kind of a problem, right? Yeah. So the answer right now is like, we don't have a great answer for that. But, you know, I think the ratings and stuff will have both parties' information, and you can basically like ask both nodes and say, what was the outcome of this, and they can provide the finalized contract. So if somebody's lying, you know, you could validate that something's missing. They can't really like hide both ratings the way that it's structured. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure like if this becomes popular, there'll be all kinds of ways that people will game the system, and we'll have to like evolve. But yeah.
Just to follow up from the gentleman who asked the question about the trust of the transaction. You mentioned the escrow accounts. Are the escrow accounts nodes within itself?
No. So basically, like, the way that the address is generated is from the three keys, right, of the parties. So when you're going to buy something from somebody, you would get the key from the moderator, and you would get the key from the merchant, and create this address. So it doesn't need to like literally reside anywhere. It kind of resides on all three of them. And then when you want to do like a refund, the moderator would craft a transaction. He would sign it and send it to the buyer, and the buyer would sign it as well. And that would be two of the three keys, and then they'd release the money. So it's pretty much like a standard like multi-party Bitcoin process.
Doesn't that double up the fees though?
Doesn't that what?
Double up the fees.
It does. Yep. Which makes it even more compounding in the current landscape. So. What? Well, if you're paying into the escrow, and then you have to release it. So it's two transactions. Yeah. 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 And it could be even more than that. I mean, no, it'd be two. Yeah.
You mentioned eBay earlier. Can you do an auction? Would that be something?
That's somewhat akin to like what you were asking, which is like, can it do other things? Like right now, it doesn't support auctions because auctions would require like an oracle of some sort to kind of manage the bids. We have like a plan for how that could happen, but we don't currently have it in the software. Yeah. So.
What about like subscription fee or subscription plan or something?
For like if you wanted to sell that on Amazon or on OpenBazaar?
Yeah.
We don't really have that. Like right now, the only three things you can do are like human services, like by the hour or whatever. You can do digital goods. So like if you're selling music, when I pay, once it hits like 3 confirmations or whatever you set it to, it automatically sends them the media, and then physical goods. So that's all we support right now. But once we get 2.0 out, we're going to start looking at like auctions and the other models, start incorporating them. What? Oh, can't see back there.
I didn't see the presentation, so anyway, sorry for it. Do you have like a procurement functionality where you check the offerings, for unsolicited legal offerings? If so, is that a manual process from your team or an automated process?
So you're asking about like if someone's selling something that they shouldn't be on the network? Yeah. Like no, there's no process for that. Like right now, users can like opt to tag their items as like not suitable for work or like whatever. But if you wanted to sell whatever, you could put it on the network, and there's no restrictions to that. Our stance is that we'd rather provide like ways for people to flag it or hide stuff rather than police it. And even if we wanted to police it, we really couldn't because those listings are controlled by those nodes. And so, I mean, the best we could do is like maybe blacklist those nodes and try and do that, but we're not interested in being part of that. Now, IPFS is working on some kind of way to like whitelist nodes or blacklist nodes. And some software may choose to implement those whitelists and be able to do it that way, but we don't have any plans right now.
Is it intentionally that you leave it like unregulated?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where like it's very hard to like make everybody happy regulatory wise. Like if you're in every single country in the world, like what's valid here is not valid in another country, and those rules change all the time. Like we don't want to be in the game of like actually having to police that stuff. So.
The beer gets warm otherwise, so we have to stop here. Thanks a lot, Brian. It's very interesting. I'm looking forward to try the ObiWan app. Yeah, see you in a few months maybe again, or whenever the next release is out.